Welcome. Today, we're tackling something huge, moving a million super sensitive bank records from one place to another. Now, the real challenge isn't just moving them, it's about knowing with absolute certainty that the data that arrives is the pure, unaltered truth. So, how do the pros guarantee that kind of perfection? Let's dive in.
1 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That's a million credit card transactions. And you got to remember, every single one of those is tied to a real person's money. So we're not just shuffling data around here. We're literally moving a digital vault built on financial trust. And that, right there, is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When you're dealing with this kind of data, there is absolutely zero room for error. I mean, one misplaced decimal point, one missing transaction, and you've got chaos. So how on earth do the professionals ensure a flawless move every single time? Well, the answer isn't magic. And it's definitely not just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's a structured, industry-standard playbook called the Data Quality Validation Framework. This is what data engineers live by when they're moving massive data sets, say, from an old-school banking database like Oracle Flexcube to a modern cloud platform like Databricks. You see, the pros don't just check the data once and call it a day. No way. They build confidence in layers. Think of it kind of like a high-tech security system. You start with the basic checks on the outside, and then you move deeper and deeper in to the most secure, most detailed inspections. We're going to walk through every single layer. So let's start with layer 1, the fundamental sanity checks. The best analogy for this is moving to a new house. The very first thing you do is make sure all the boxes you packed actually showed up, right? Before you even think about what's inside them. And that brings us to the very first non-negotiable check, row count validation. It boils down to a super simple but incredibly profound question. Did we receive the exact same number of records that we sent? If we sent 1 million, we better have 1 million on the other side. No more, no less. And this is how they do it. What's so cool here is just how simple the code is. It's a select count star command. It's one of the most basic queries in the book. But in this situation, it is your powerful first line of defense. You run it on the source system, then you run it on the target system. And this is the result you are desperately hoping to see. 1 million on the source, 1 million on the target, a perfect match. That little green check mark, that's the first big sigh of relief on any migration project. It tells you, okay, all our boxes have arrived. But, it's not just about the number of boxes. It's also about their shape. We also have to check the columns. If each transaction record started with, say, 7 pieces of information, like an ID, the amount, the customer, we need to make sure all 7 of those columns made the trip. This confirms the basic structure of our data is still intact. Okay, so quick recap. All our boxes are here, and they're all the right shape. Now we can move on to layer 2. It's finally time to start opening those boxes and actually inspect the contents. And this is where we use something called aggregate validation. Now, instead of checking 1 million transaction amounts one by one, which would be insane, we can do something way smarter. We calculate the total sum of all transactions in the source and just compare that to the total sum in the target. It's an incredibly slick and efficient way to get really confident that the numbers themselves are correct. And boom, this is exactly what we're looking for. The total value of all transactions in Oracle is $15,432,678.90. And in Databricks, the exact same number, down to the penny. That's another successful check. And you can just feel our confidence level rising. So we've confirmed the counts, we've checked the totals, but when you're dealing with banking-grade data, pretty sure just doesn't cut it. We need an absolute rock-solid guarantee. And that brings us to our final and by far most powerful layer of validation, the gold standard. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The source material we're looking at is crystal clear on this next technique, calling it, and I'm quoting here, the most powerful method. So why is it so powerful? Well, because this is how you get as close to certain as humanly possible. So what is this powerful method? It's called checksum, or hash validation. Think of it like this. For every single row of data, you use all of its information to create a unique, super complex digital fingerprint. If even one tiny character changes in that row, the entire fingerprint changes dramatically. So by comparing the fingerprints, you can prove they're identical with cryptographic certainty. And for the final knockout punch proof, engineers use what's called a record level validation with a minus query.
The logic here is just brilliant. You basically ask the source database a simple question. Hey, show me any records you have that the target database doesn't have. The only answer you'll accept is 0. Then you flip it around and do it the other way. If both queries come back empty, you haven't just copied the data, you've proven it's perfect. This table really puts it all together, doesn't it? You can see the whole strategy. You start with the fast, essential checks like row count. That's your first safety net. Then you climb the ladder to the checks that take more computer power but are way more thorough, like the hash and record-level validations. It's this smart trade-off, balancing speed with absolute certainty. Each level just builds on the trust you established in the last one. So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean in practice? Well, when you've got millions of rows and you need to be both fast and accurate, you don't always have to run every single test on every single piece of data. There's a recommended Pro Combo, a kind of greatest hits collection of tests. And here it is, the Pro Combo. You can totally see the logic, right? You start with the fastest check for a total disaster. That's your row count. Then you do a quick check on the money itself with the sum validation. And then you bring in the heavy hitters, the super powerful hash check for deep integrity, and finally, that minus query for the ultimate, undeniable proof that you have a perfect match. And the result of going through this whole rigorous process? You get this. 99.99% confidence that every single one of those million records has been moved perfectly. And let me tell you, in the world of high-stakes data, that is as close to absolute certainty as you can possibly get. So the next time you hear about data moving from one system to another, just remember this. The goal isn't just to make another copy. The goal is to transfer the truth. And this professional framework, this is how you make sure the truth arrives completely intact.